Hello Internet, my name is Gothic Lord UK and here we are with another video. I think we got suggested this from Reddit, possibly not, but either way we are playing some 10 cent, 25 cent pot limit 5 card Omaha Hi Lo. Lots of words in that title I'm sure, but as we start off on the big blind here, as you always should when you join a table, it is Omaha Hi Lo, except you get 5 cards in your hand to start rather than 4. Of course, when you hold 3 5s in your hand, you may as well be playing regular Omaha Hi Lo because you can only play 2 cards from your hand, making the third 5 redundant. And so we'll be folding. And so, as with any Hi-Lo game, at the end of the hand, at Showdown, any remaining players will table their cards. Whoever has the highest scoring hand, with the traditional high card being the lowest scoring hand, royal flush being the highest scoring hand, will receive the high scoring half of the pot, and whichever player has the lowest 5 cards to an ace, so ace, deuce, trey, 4, 5 being the 5 lowest cards, receives the lowest portion, the low half of the pot. Of course, in order to get the low half of the pot, you need 5 different cards, 2 of which from your hand, 3 are from the board, which all are different, and 8 or lower, hence the often named Omaha 8 or better, or stud 8 or better if you prefer. And so we're going to be looking for hands that contain ace-deuce, because ace-deuce can often make the best low. As we had here, we had ace-trey for the second best low draw, and flush draws and all the Broadway cards, but as we didn't hit any part of that flop, we are going to give up. And so we're just going to see how things go at the table for the moment. We're not going to get too crazy until we've seen what some of our opponents are going to be like, who's going to re-raise and try and get it in for pot-sized bets, who's just going to limp and fold at the time, all these sorts of things. The deuce is good for us, the king's on board, not really that good for us obviously, having no king in our hand, and any king in our opponent's hand is just going to make their high almost unobtainably good. But a c-bet will get that one through. 3, 4, 5 looks good because it's through wheel cards, but the 9 and the queen in our hand don't help us at all, and even if we do hit some part of a low, there's probably going to be a smoother low than ours. And so when we say a smoother low, we mean that when you rank 2 low scoring hands against one another, you always start with the highest cards and work down. And so if a player has ace, deuce, 5, 6, 8 versus a player that has ace, deuce, 5, 6, 7, the lowest 4 rank cards are the same, but 7 is lower than an 8, and so the 7 low is the better low hand. So when we talk about a smooth hand or a smooth draw, that is a hand or a draw that has all of the lowest cards in the hand ranking. And so ace, deuce, trey would be a smooth draw, whereas deuce, 5, 7 would be a rough draw. Each can make a low in their own rights, but obviously when you're drawing to a smooth hand rather than a rough hand, you're more likely to win against somebody else that is drawing worse than you. And so what we want to be doing in a high-low variant in almost any given game of poker that you play for high-low is what's called scooping, which is where you win the high and the low in order to win the entirety of the pot. And so in order to do that, you want to have hands like ace, deuce, 4, 5 that can make the nut low and a straight, or preferably even if you can, ace, deuce, 6, 7. Obviously I'm talking about 4 card hands here. In this game you get 5, and so that 5th card will hopefully contribute to the strength of your hand somewhat. But if you have ace, deuce, 6, 7 and somewhere on the board is 3, 4, 5, you not only have a 5 card low, a 5 low for ace, deuce, trey, 4, 5, but you also have a 7 high straight, and so that's probably going to be good enough to win the high and the low and thus get you the whole pot. Whereas some of the time you might want to have something like ace, deuce, low with the ace having a suited card in your hand, so you can make the nut low and a flush, these sorts of things. Obviously if you can make the nut low and a full house or something, then you're certainly on your way to winning a decent pot, particularly if somebody else has the second nut low and a really bad high hand or something, that's generally going to be beneficial for you. Excuse me while I have some water. And so this pot's just going to go check, 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 nice and boring. Nobody wants it. Obviously, ace tray is the nut low. 7-6 would be the nut high, I think, for the straight. As it turns out, that pot gets chopped up quite a lot. 5, 6, 7, 8 queen here. Apart from the fact that we're in the small blind, which is the worst position at the table, we don't get to see what everybody else does on future streets. All those middling cards are going to be almost unable to give us a winning hand, simply because if we do make a low, we are always going to make the worst low, and if we do make a high, there's no given that it's going to be the best high. Even if we were to say turn a flush in this instance, we only have an 8 high flush, that's probably not going to win too often. Combine that with our weak low draw, and we're unlikely to manage to win anything in this instance. So they'll chop that one up. One of the nice things about high-low variant games is that generally they are quite low variance. You're going to find that you'll chop pots quite frequently, and when you do get all in, you're going to get often at least a quarter of the pot back rather than losing outright. And the swings aren't usually quite, the swings aren't quite as harsh as something like PLO or just no limit hold'em. And so we've lost a player to our right. Again, without decent low cards, I'm not too keen on getting involved. If we were on the button and it hadn't been opened, we probably would because of our positional strength, but in that instance, just let that one go. This hand, though, will be much more likely to defend from the big blind. 3 wheel cards is obviously decent. The connected Broadway cards, whilst they don't work with the lower part of our hand, do certainly work together. And so if Broadway cards come, we can do something with it. As it turns out, we have the nut low draw and a bad flush draw. But if we pair any of the 3 cards in our hand, the deuce trail 5, we make a straight. Whilst the flush generally isn't too strong for us, however. And so because we do have that strong wrap to getting any of these cards, as in we have 9 outs to our straight, I'm actually going to 3 bets in position on this flop. So we now have 2 flush draws, one of which is reasonably good. I think I meant to raise, but I didn't. But in that instance, we are just going to call this. Are we going to call this bet? If he has like ace 4 or ace 9, we're calling to try and get half the pot back, and so I'm going to err on the side of caution there. And unfortunately, we brick out everything, and we have queen high and no low, which is terrible. And so I think my mistake, talking too much and not acting, managed to save us some money there. Player on our right has joined with a note, runs it 2 times and is a short stacker. Short stacker is slightly wider in my definition on my notes to mean that is a player that doesn't come in for the full buy-in and top up. So these guys over here would technically be short stackers, but I haven't made that note yet. But it's nice to know when somebody's going to run it twice, because again, that's going to let you lower your variance if you haven't got the healthiest bankroll in the world, or don't want to be risking your entirety of your money every time you get all in. If another player is running it twice, then you have a better chance of getting some of your money back, especially in a high-low game. Then you can end up with 8 chops of a pot and receiving some of those back and not others, obviously, unless you should be very fortunate or have an incredibly good hand getting it in. I missed what that guy was folding, but replay is a wonderful thing. We're just going to fold these middling cards here from the button. He had an ace-high flush draw and an open-ended, or the second nut low draw, and a gut shot to a 3. And so missed all of his draws for the massive £1, $1.53 pot there. Feels so terrible for him. And so something I've often talked about, but I will say again in a moment, or now rather. We quite like our position at the table looking at where the money is, because we have the shorter stacks to our left and the larger stacks to our right. It's more just of an instance of the seat that was open when we joined the table is the seat that we're now in. But it's certainly something to be aware of, the dynamics of the stack sizes around you. And so what this fundamentally means is we get to act after the players with more money than us. With ace, deuce and six and kings in the hole here, we'll certainly be raising. But as I was saying, we get to act in position of those that have more money than us, and so that lets us make better decisions. And those that have less money than us act after us, and so they have a positional advantage, but we're not as scared of them because they can't take us for our whole stack. And so that's certainly advantageous to us. So now we have the nut low with ace deuce and our overpair of kings, and so we are certainly going to be betting this. If an ace or a deuce comes, we then no longer have the best low, unfortunately. We would get counterfeited, and so if an ace came, then deuce 4 or something would then be the nut low. We pick up a gut shot to a 5, which would actually give us a 6 high straight draw, and so we are going to bet again. Unfortunately, we could be losing the high pot to like a straight or to 2 pair at the moment, which is not great, but in this instance some aggression does manage to let us take it down. This hand is pretty trashy. 8 deuce for low is terrible, pair of 8s isn't really worth all too much, and queen 9-8 for working on a straight is only probably going to get beaten by broadways, because you'll have a lot of hands that will come along holding an ace, and you'll have a lot of hands that will subsequently have ace and a king, just with the king working on the side of the ace that works for high and low. But boards such as deuce tray 4 are always going to be boards that you generally want to see in this sort of game. Obviously when we're not involved in the hand, then it will just let the action happen in front of us. But obviously ace 5 now is the nut low. 5-6 is the nut high at the moment for top straight, but there's obviously now flush redraws and redraws to the straight for the 8 high. We would have actually made quads if I can remember the hand we folded. Yep, we would have made quads. Obviously don't care because we couldn't have known that going in, and we wouldn't have gotten to that river anyway, I expect, but can't ignore the fact that we knew it would have happened. 3-6, 8-8-9 here again. It looks very pretty with the hearts and the diamonds, so multiple flushes and the pair, and it looks prettier than it is. This is the kind of hand you're going to get in trouble with because you'll get attached to, like I don't know, 4-5 will come and you'll think, oh, I've got a straight draw and a decent low, when in reality your low is pretty terrible and you're out of position, and it's easier to just fold and save yourself the trouble. And when you get monocolour boards like that, the odds that somebody has flopped a flush is going to be reasonably high, given that everybody has 5 cards. It's going to be much easier for a player to be holding 2 cards of the same suit. Ace 5 is not a great low. The ace of diamonds is working to our advantage, having a queen, but then 3 diamonds on our hand means there's 1 less for us that we can make our hand with. And we obviously have 3 top Broadway cards, but again, because we have an unlikely chance to scoop, I'm more inclined to just get rid of it. So again, there's currently no low because you need 3 low cards on board, and so now that the 5 arrives on the river, ace tray would be the nut low, ace 4 would be the second nut low, and 3-4 would be the third nut low. It's always good if you're not too familiar with games like HiLo split games and things. Just try and be figuring out what would the best hand be, or what if you held what you folded what would your hand be, what would your high hand be, what would your low hand be, and what hands would be beating you. It's generally just in good practice, just so that you're not tabling your hand at the end and you think, oh, I thought I had a straight, when in reality you had two cards on the board to a straight and three in your hand that's obviously not going to play. And so we've lost one of the shorter stacks over to the other side there, which isn't too dramatic. I'm going to raise deuce tray with two queen high flush draws and queen 10 for the higher end of things. Not the strongest hand, but I don't want to be the nittiest person in the world, because then when we do get a hand, we're unlikely to get action. And this is certainly a hand that we can scoop with. So, deuce tray, we currently have the third nut low after ace deuce and ace tray, and a marginal flush draw, but we will c-bet because we had the pre-flop aggression. And facing this raise, we are just going to give up. We haven't got any part of a made hand yet. If ace deuce or ace tray is drawing, then any low card that comes is going to give them a better low draw than us. And if they have like a ace deuce of hearts or something, then we can get absolutely screwed over if we do hit our flush and our low, because we could still be drawing dead. So against that aggression, I'll just give that one up. I'm going to defend against this raise with ace tray, nut and second nut flush draws. Two pair, kings and tens is not too bad. We also have ace king and ace 10 for a queen to a straight, obviously. When they check on flop, we are inclined to bet, because they probably have lots of baby cards that simply don't connect with that board at all. I'm just deciding if we're getting almost 5 to 1 on a call here, just less than. With 10 jack queen to Broadway, we can only really make the nut straight, and so if everyone else is having low cards, we're more likely to flop high cards. As it comes out, we get all the middling cards instead, and so we're unlikely to be picking up this pot, unless maybe a 6 comes on turn if it gets checked round. Obviously, many lows and straights and stuff available at the moment, but we only have a pair of 7s, which is no good to anybody. 5-6 makes a straight, ace deuce makes a low, deuce 5 makes a low, ace 5 makes a low. We don't have any low at all yet, because we have, oh no, we do have, we can play 8, 8, 5, 7, 4, 3. But on that river we do pick up 2 pair. I can't see that it's going to be good, given the number of straight possibilities that are out there. I'd imagine somebody must have 9-6, 9 jack. Obviously no flushes or straights, flushes to worry about in spades or hearts. Could we possibly win the high half of this pot? No. 10s and 8s beats our 10s and 7s, unfortunately. We're going to be raising this with ace tray for low and nut and second nut. Sorry, the spades are both the high cards for that suit, so it's not nut and second nut flushes, but it is 2 flush draws and various straight outs all around the Broadway, including the 9 to help us. So that raise gets through. I'm going to take this moment to point out that I am by no means a qualify myself as a decent pot limit 5 card Omaha Hi Lo player. I am a average at best. But I don't want to be giving off the impression that I think I am the Korean meatballs, aka the dog's bollocks. I'm going to raise this with 4 Broadway cards and 2 flush draws. And with position and the 2 very large stacks behind us likely to call as well, I'm also inclined to call this bet. This might be really fishy. Let's do it. We basically want to see, like, it's not a bad start. As I say, we want to see Broadway cards. So if he has aces in the hole, obviously we're drawing pretty thin. If he has ace tray, then he's drawing to the low and we're not. If he has ace king, we're drawing pretty thin. And so really it's probably about time we got out of dodge, rather than me talking myself into a call with our pair of kings. Oh, that's a beautiful hand. Let's get raised into 3 ways here, please. Ah, oh, that's just not fair. Ace, ace, deuce, 5, 6. Apart from you could throw a second flush draw in there, if you made that the deuce of spades, I don't really think you could probably get a better hand in this game, because you would have 2 nut flushes, the nut low draw, 5, 6 for the nut high draw if you get 3, 4, 5. I suppose you could have the 5 could be a 7, and then if you get 3, 4, 5 on board, you would have the 7 high straight as well. But that's the hand that dreams are made of right there. And so depending on how we run and how my energy goes, we'll probably play for up to an hour, maybe break it into 2 parts and put it up so it's a bit easier for people to digest, because who wants to sit and watch 2 straight hours of one guy playing one game online? I know I couldn't pay that much attention for quite so long to this terrible, apparently British accent. I'm one of those people that I don't think I have an accent, because I hear this voice in my head all the time. But obviously you guys around the world think otherwise, and I can totally appreciate that. I'm thinking about raising with all these high cards again, because I am a terrible, terrible monster. This is pretty bad, because we don't even have a low. There is no low that we can make here, because 9-4 being our 2 lowest cards, can't make a low. So we need a jack and some surrounding cards, or absolute trash. And so we're not going to try and represent ace-4, because somebody else here is going to have a better low draw and 4-5 and all these things. Spade would be not the worst card. And so now just about every draw must have come in by now, I swear. And yet everyone's still just checking it around. I'm going to take a stab at this and see if I can't just take it down here. There's no other way I can win this pot, and it's been so passively checked around for 3 streets. There's the raise. It was all too good to be true. Deuce 3-5, we're going to raise again. Obviously, raising is generally more interesting than just folding for an hour, and so that's probably not helping my case. But what does help my case is if you have a choice between, we got top 2 here, which is good. Set of 4s is currently beating us, but otherwise we will carry on. Obviously any 4 now is beating us, which is lame. We'll see if we can peel a spade off the end, or another king or a 10. And so his check here tells me he probably doesn't have a 4, but if I raise, if I bet now a 4 is going to call. If I raise now, is like, I don't know, King 9 gonna call? Maybe, but we don't get too much that's better to fold and worse to call, so we check back. And he did just have a king, which isn't so bad for us. Ace deuce 4 5 5 is very pretty. I was making a point there before we talked about what to raise and what to fold, or what to raise and what to check. But I can't remember what it was. But we're certainly going to be raising here, given the absolute strength of our holding. And so we do have the nut low draw and a pair of 5s, and so we are going to keep betting. And so the king doesn't help us. The only other option now is to basically put our opponent all in, because we don't want to bet and then get raised and have to call off hating ourselves. And so I'm more inclined to bet the 11 and hope they fold and still have outs. And they win with ace. What do we have? I have no idea. Oh, we had 9s. We had 5s in the hole. I was thinking we were going to lose to ace queen high, but of course we had 5s in the hole there, and so they had the second nut low draw versus our ace deuce to their ace tray and nothing else, and so very good result for us there. With deuce 4 5 against a min raise, I will come along, and that's a decent flop for us. We have like a little wrap going on with a deuce 4 5 with 3 in the middle. However, 3 9s definitely going to get a bet from us. And we'll take that one down as well. Oh, I know what I was saying from about 2 hands ago. If you have the option of an aggressive move and a passive move, generally you should be trying to take the aggressive line, because aggressive actions are going to pay off long term, and so you want to build a image and representation of giving action, because then when you have made hands, people are going to think that you're just trying to bet when you might have, say, a set, but you've been betting your flush draws all night, and they're going to pay you off when you make a complete hand. And generally you're going to be able to build pots better by having a aggressive image rather than a passive image, and it's generally just a good thing. So we have the nut low draw, a gut shot to the nut low and nut straight, and a bad flush draw, but that's certainly good enough for a C bet in position, and we'll take that one down as well. 2 pairs 10s and trays with a deuce, I'm going to let go. And so I'm going to play the half hour. We're almost a half hour in, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit out next big blind, call this a stop at a half hour, get another glass of water, and we will be back in the same table for part 2 in just a few moments. But thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you over in part 2.